Alright, so we are live 9:15 p.m. 2/7/2024, and we're going deeper into the decode of this ongoing psyop. This is Saturn X, a song by Fepet. Speaking of Saturn, there's a moon of Saturn called Mimas, which is a spitting image for the Death Star. The spherical warship that Darth Vader brought, and of course, Darth Vader's a representation, an archetype of Saturn. So it makes sense that his craft would look like one of Saturn's moons. But more relevant right now, the Allegiant Stadium is called the Death Star, which may also connect to the recent death of a Star Wars actor. We've been looking at these various threads, but the main thread that has come out of this whole thing, we started looking at Swift. We're talking about Taylor Swift and the MAGA resentment against her. This former 4chan incel Aryan princess turned Biden. Now she's riding with Biden. We've seen some blowback, but it's expanded beyond that. And the meta narrative, the script here, seems to be a frame, a setup for some kind of Princess Diana type situation. So I put out this article today, Taylor Swift Lost at Sea. We may as well get in front of it. If we're going to use predictive programming as a predictive model, then we ought to make some bold claims, because that's what we're doing anyway, and see if we're off the mark or not. And we'll leave it up to, the after review to determine if we were off the mark, if we're running amok with cognitive bias. But let's just go over some of this here. What I'm suggesting here is that there may be a tragedy psyop this weekend, so let's go over a few details. Taylor Swift has recently been compared to Marilyn Monroe, Princess Di, Amelia Earhart, all female icons with tragic deaths. So let's just start with that. Then you have the number 13 associated with the lunar goddess. Princess Diana's connection deepens when examining her tragic death, crashing into the 13th pillar under the bridge. Taylor Swift is actually killed 13 minutes into the movie Amsterdam by being pushed under a car. I've seen the clip. Number 13 is associated with death, despite it being her quote lucky number. Her flight to attend her 13th Chiefs game requires a 13-hour trip from Japan. And Japan plays a role in some conspiracy theories about Amelia Earhart's disappearance. So Amelia Earhart's plane has been found recently, and Taylor Swift made Time's Person of the Year, and she looked like Amelia Earhart. And it is claimed that they are cousins. Moreover, Earhart has been referred to as the Taylor Swift of her time. So each of these is a deeper thread. These are all points that the media has brought up. And then in the movie Leave the World Behind, there's a reference to a tailor dropping a pin and later being unfindable. And this occurs concurrent with a photo of a Taylor Swift-like woman in a blue bikini. And this, again, may have some deeper connections. Taylor's mentioned right before the White Lion oil tanker crashes into the beach. And this would indicate that the planes were already falling from the sky at that point. Then there's this. So this is all, again, recent events. Taylor Swift demands Jack Sweeney stop tracking her jet. So she's being tracked in her jet. Quote, because the offending accounts share live updates on her destination and the exact time our client will arrive at a given location, you provide individuals intent on physically harming her or with nefarious or violent intentions a roadmap to carry out their plans, said Swift's lawyer. Now, this made me think about the stalker narrative, which is part of the Princess Diana's crash story. This is from the Washington Post. A separate coroner's inquest in Britain concluded in 2008 that Diana and Fayed had been unlawfully killed as a result of actions by drivers and the paparazzi. So she's being stalked right now. There's that element. And then you have these weird jokes, like the McCaffrey family joking about it, saying, Taylor Swift is dead to us. Now here's another one. This is a great one, and shout out to 777 is 666. Great work as always. So Taylor Swift beat Miss America Pie for the longest #1 song. I think the song is called The Day the Music Died. Now, I didn't know the whole story behind it, but first of all, it was a hit when it was released in 1972, and it was up there for half a decade. It's an 8-minute and 42-second song. Well, Taylor Swift released a song that beat them, that beat that one. And her song is like 10 minutes and 13 seconds. So there's your 13 again for good measure. But my point of it is the American Pie connection to Taylor Swift here has been established. Now, what 777 is 666 points out is that Bye Bye American Pie is a reference to Taylor Swift. The song is about a plane crash, Richie Valens, Big Bopper, and others. The song is about a halftime show, football players, music dying. Hoover Dam, levee was dry, drinking whiskey and wine, Super Bowl parties. So there's something of a connection here. And then there's, of course, this is the scream grab from Leave the World Behind, where they make a reference to a tailor who drops a pin. So these are some of the points, but there's definitely a lot more. But it seems to indicate, again, Amelia Earhart, Princess Di, Marilyn Monroe. Why is she being associated with female icons who die in tragic ways? And then there's another topic I really want to delve into, which is this quarterback and his comparison to Lee Harvey Oswald. So I thought about this last night after the fact, after this live stream, and I realized, okay, there's a few more layers to this thing. So first of all, and I think this is all connected, but first let's just bring this up. Brock Purdy has been compared to Lee Harvey Oswald. It's all over right now. TMZ, CNN, everybody's saying, look at this guy's response to being compared to Lee Harvey Oswald, the guy who killed JFK. Now, luckily, he doesn't look like, a Ted Bundy or something. But this comparison is not, it's not even close in my opinion. It's forced out there. It's force memed. It's part of the script. So here he is, number 13, quarterback, 49ers. And I'm thinking there's some deeper connection here. So the movie Leave the World Behind, first of all, I have to point out, Leave the World Behind was released by the Obamas. And it came out on 11/22, which is JFK's death date. So 11/22, 1963. The movie takes place in area code 11963. So you have 1963 and 119, which always has to do with planes falling from the sky for some reason. But anyway, Leave the World Behind, the one we're talking about that has the Taylor Swift-like reference, has a reference to JFK's death day built into it. So this is just one little connection with Obama. But now here's where it gets interesting. So you take Brock Purdy's initials, BP, gives you 216. And this is all stuff that Jurassic Liars has pointed out. The 216th day of the year is Obama's birthday, which is 8/4. Interestingly, the first black Speaker of the House, Hakeem Jeffries, has the same exact birthday. But it's the 216th day of the year, Obama's birthday. And according to Jurassic Liars' read on this whole thing, Obama is going to call for the JFK-like hit on Trump. Now remember, last year, well 2022 rather, in the summer, you had the 4th of July parade, again 4 of 7, 4th of July, a shooter with a 47 on his head. That shooter at the Highland Park 4th of July parade was obsessed with Lee Harvey Oswald. And he went to Trump rallies. So it doesn't take a lot to put this together. Lee Harvey Oswald, 47 tattoo on his head. Trump has the 47 on his hat. This guy goes to Trump rallies. They're foreshadowing an Oswald-like JFK hit on Trump. So we've discussed this stuff at length, and it's being brought back. And again, Highland Park. Meanwhile, the Parkland High shooter was in the news because he was being sentenced. And by the way, JFK went to Parkland Hospital in the bloody Fort Lincoln. Now, the connections here go a little deeper as well, because we're talking about the Super Bowl, and this is a quarterback for the Super Bowl being associated with Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, BP 216 would also mean or apply to February 16th, which is the Weeknd's birthday. Now, if you remember The Weeknd, whose name is Abel, think Cain and Abel, head wound, he did a performance at the Super Bowl with a head wound costume. So I'm like, this is all starting to tie together. Super Bowl, head wound, JFK thing, and of course the 216 number. Interesting stuff dropping here. And then this. So this thing with Disney releasing certain copyrights on characters. Well, it looks like Oswald the Rabbit has been kind of released to the public domain. So there's a horror movie coming out called Oswald Down the Rabbit Hole. So this is an Alice in Wonderland a reference here, obviously, but also a reference to, well, the name Oswald stands out because this just comes out and it's a horror movie. So I'm thinking Monster Rabbit, because it's some kind of a monstrous rabbit thing. Oswald. And it got me thinking about Donnie Darko, which is about, one, Donald Trump, but also it's an Alice in Wonderland story, and it has this monstrous rabbit with a skull face. And this rabbit gets shot in the head. It has this head wound symbolism. So a few little clues thrown into the mix here. Again, Oswald, Monster Bunny connects to Donnie Darko's Monster Bunny Frank with the head wound, Donald Trump. And then you have these Oswald connections connecting to both the Super Bowl head wound performance of the weekend, the Super Bowl quarterback for this Super Bowl 58, which has been connected to Super Bowl 47, the Blackout Bowl, in a number of ways. But then, even one step further here, we're just looking at the bigger picture. It seems like there's some kind of reference tying in blackouts, the JFK assassination, Trump, and this particular Super Bowl. Now, why this Super Bowl? I'm not quite sure. But we do know that Taylor Swift is taking a 13-hour flight from Japan. Right, we are joined by Diana South, Thrustazar, Cat Bunny Buffalo, Oh Sure, Peace Circle 36737, Frank Merge, Dimitri 101 says, 13th letter is M. M got its shape from a wave. Well, Taylor Swift says that at all of her award shows, she's sitting in row M or the number 13. And M is a reference to the goddess as Magdalene. Da Vinci Code actually did a lot of decoding of the letter M and its significance in all of this. Jungle Jin, Lean Dion, Into the Beyond says raft time. Yeah, the raft is growing, and the sea of irrelevance, yeah, maybe it's getting deeper and there's more and more junk being thrown in there. It's toxic. Don't drink from the sea of irrelevance. It's a desert. I call it the desert of the designated real, but it's definitely not something you can drink. 737 says Heaven's Gate has the best punch. Yeah, well, there's some competition. There's the piston Kool-Aid trough that all the red pillars are drinking out of. I'm getting a lot of flack from a certain faction of internet Nazis. They're like, why don't you care about what we care about? And I'm like, you guys don't do media deconstruction. If you're still stuck in identity politics and culture war, you're distracted. That's pretty much it. Tyrone McCloskey says Brock Purdy looks more like Buster Posey, the last SF storybook character. Well, he's number 13, quarterback. He's playing in a role, if you go back to Super Bowl 47, where Kaepernick was the quarterback. And that was the 33-minute blackout. And Kaepernick has some fascinating connections, both this Christ typecasting, but they've also have other threads you could lean into. Like, for example, he got the RFK award. Who would want that? Who wants an award named for somebody who got shot in the head? And then he got the Nike award for the Sacrifice Everything advertising campaign for Nike, and that was something he won alongside somebody named Kennedy. And I've noticed there's a lot of foreshadowing with a number of these characters, like almost like they're being set up to be martyred in some form or fashion. Specifically with the Colin Kaepernick, there was a few things about him that stood out as making him seemingly a target of the right. Especially his movie, Colin in Black and White, which highlighted how much the right wing hated him, the Tea Party at the time, burning Kaepernick jerseys. In fact, there was some MMA guy who said he won't watch the Super Bowl because of Kaepernick. So he's a highly charged figure politically, but I don't think he's that relevant right now. So I thought, well, maybe that's just a public sacrifice, a blackballing, but not a literal one, which would be a huge incitement. But you have to also remember, too, the kneeling is a symbolic gesture, and it was brought back to our attention with Derek Chauvin when they were illustrating this dialectic that they were pointing out. The class warfare, the oppressed and the oppressor, the Marxist theater of Derek Chauvin kneeling on Floyd. All of this is very fascinating, but let's stick to the present Super Bowl because there's just something here with 58 and 47. We've been talking about the number 47, and I've suggested for some time that Super Bowl 47 is foreshadowing some kind of blackout during or around the election cycle for 2024, the 47th president. And we'll go through our notes and uncover more of these connections. One of them was Beyonce and Swift, funnily enough. If you remember, Beyonce and Swift have had this kind of thing with these award shows, between Kanye and more recently Jay-Z, suggesting that Beyonce is getting snubbed. Well, Beyonce was the performer during the Super Bowl 47, and so Swift is the performer of this one. Not literally, but as you can see how this story's unfolding. And there are going to be so many of these Swift Super Bowl parties. I mean, it's really not organic what we're witnessing here. And we always talk about the scripting, which gives it all away. Lean Dion says Toby Keith, TK, reported death on 2/6, age of 62. Yes, and he's the one who started or first signed Taylor Swift, and then her boyfriend also has the same initials. So there's a foreshadowing, kind of a tragedy storyline already. Erica Creech says MK Ultra, mind control in the spy comedy Argyle. I'll have to check it out. Diana South says Abe Lincoln birthday is the day after the Super Bowl 212. And when he was killed, it was a Good Friday. And Abe Lincoln, of course, Abel, you can look at the name. In fact, interestingly, if you look at the name and you break it after the L, you get Abel, and you could spell colon. The letters here are significant, and I'll just point out why I'm saying this. Because recently we were talking about the killing of Shinzo Abe, which is an Abe-like name, friend of Donald Trump, and this is right after the capstone on the Georgia Guidestones were blown up on George Bush's 76th birthday. So we're discussing all of this and the significance of these names, but there's connections between Abe Lincoln's assassination and JFK's assassination that are very well known and established. Some of them may be exaggerated, I don't know, but there's certainly evidences of metascripting going back more than a century. Like JFK's blood, Kennedy's blood on the Ford Lincoln, Lincoln's blood on the Ford Theater. And there's even connections between John Wilkes Booth, some statue in Central Park where they did the Julius Caesar in 2016 where they killed Donald Trump as Julius Caesar. But anyway, the JFK Abe Lincoln connections are intriguing, but they even go into, I've been finding connections that even would point to Kaepernick, interestingly. And I'm like, why is this? And I think it makes sense from a certain perspective if you look at him as something like the titular head of revolutionary Marxism in the form of BLM. And his name, and names are everything. Colon comes from Nicholas, and Kaepernick comes from Copernicus. So, world revolution. It's all encoded into this whole thing. But we'll see what happens over the next week. Again, I want to point out that there's connections with the JFK thing that go back from the Parkland shooter, who was going to Trump rallies, the Highland Park shooter, to the more recent naming of the quarterback as a Lee Harvey Oswald and Leave the World Behind, which was released on the assassination date of JFK. It has a reference directly to 1963. And they're bringing all this up against a backdrop of the QAnon cult, who are of the belief that JFK is literally Q, and he's come back to save them, and he's Jesus. And in fact, they actually believe that Lincoln was also the blood of Christ. I mean, really, nobody could have foreseen how strange that cult would become, and it's far from over. Tomino3 says 2016 Trump, Captain America, Civil War, 2024 Trump, Civil War releases in April 2024. Yeah, these movies do track with the election cycles. The Trump family actually recruited the marketer for The Purge for the 2020 campaign, since he was an expert in marketing dystopia. I guess they decided to sell us on a dark vision. Like, if you don't vote for me, you'll get this. Demetria 101 says Toby Keith founded the label Taylor Swift was originally signed to. And look, she shows up at the event to win her 13th, wearing a doomsday clock around her neck, drawing attention to the 13 herself, which she writes on her hands. I mean, they're obsessive about it. But she's also releasing a new album. And she opens up the album cover, takes a picture, posts it on Instagram, and it references a bomb and pitch black. Watt Life says February 11th, Mandela was released from prison. Do you think that Brian Stavely and all the Mandela affected celebrate that? That ought to be a Mandela Effect holiday. That and Ed McMahon's birthday. Okay, let's continue through my notes. We have quite a lot to dig into. I think this is an interesting point. Again, February 3rd, 1959, so it was in the month of February. American rock and roll musicians Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, the Big Bopper J.P. Richardson were killed in a plane crash together with pilot Roger Peterson. The event became known as the Day the Music Died, after the singer-songwriter referred to it as such in his song American Pie. And so what 777 is 666 says is that Taylor Swift is American Pie. And this is like perfectly scripted to be a huge tragic psyop. Continuing on this is a related note with 47. Just to remember, when Alex Soros tweeted about the $47 and the bullet hole, it was at 7:55 p.m. So if you remember the post that was taken apart by Laura Loomer, the son of George Soros had a photo of a hand holding number of dollar bills that added to 47 alongside a bullet hole. And by the way, there have been a few sniper stories recently. We'll get into all this. We've got a few things to go through here that have to do with this general theme of snipers. But what this person's pointing out is that that is the time of day that we'll have the total solar eclipse on 4/8/2024. Again, we're paying attention to these things. The astrological timing of things is always a huge part of these various psyops, and this solar eclipse is pointed at in the movie Leave the World Behind, kind of indirectly, having to do with the Chandler Bing, that's his birthday, Matthew Perry's death day, 10/28. There's a connection to Leave the World Behind and the seeming Xing out of America as this eclipse finishes this X across America. I think it even goes through Eagle Pass, where they're having that border psyop right now. And there may be some action tomorrow. Join us February 8th at the steps of the Supreme Court. Trump is a traitor. The court will hear whether the United States can withdraw him from their statewide ballot. There's going to be a big Antifa gathering. Should be peaceful. Okay, we've talked about this thing with the scary-looking rabbit from Donnie Darko. And if you're not familiar with the whole Donnie Darko thing, it connects to 9/11, 2020, Trump, Pizzagate, the Trump Antichrist thing. But at the core of the story, it's got the Alice in Wonderland story about this sleepwalker and this connection with the rabbit telling him he's running out of time. And this theme, Alice in Wonderland, is built into Leave the World Behind, where the character who represents Donnie Darko, they call her Donnie Darko, goes into this bunker because she knows they're running out of time. But in the movie, you have the character Frank the Rabbit who gets the right eye wound. And of course, this would connect to the monstrous-looking Oswald bunny, which is just conspicuous because this was posted today. And I'm looking at this thinking, okay, it's probably not disconnected from this Lee Harvey Oswald being force-memed. Again, the Disney rabbit, Oswald, was released to the public and has emerged as a wild new public domain spin-off. Here's another scary cartoon thanks to the public domain. Now, I didn't know that Oswald had anything to do with Alice in Wonderland. I don't think he does. However, this new project is called Oswald Down the Rabbit Hole. And there's a scary teaser. I haven't watched it. I don't really care to at the moment. I just wanted to point out that they've brought back this scary rabbit and they've associated him with Alice in Wonderland. Therefore, this Oswald character bunny is connected to Donnie Darko. At least enough to draw this connection with this Oswald thing. Then we have this Knife Man is shot dead by police sniper after he claimed he had a bomb at a bank in Florida. So, hey man, nice shot. Feds arrest man they say intended to act as a militia sniper, southern border, to attack federal agents. So there's that storyline developing, like Justin Moan called for. But again, sniper in quotes, military sniper. Meaning that he knows how to account for the curvature and the rotation of the earth. Because all snipers think about that, don't they? Sorry. It's just that Tucker Carlson was like, I might think the earth was flat, except I go hunting and I believe in guns. And since guns are real, the earth is curved. Because you have to account for the curve of the earth when you shoot. Which is absurd. I mean, who gives him his talking points? Okay, back on target here. Enough is enough. Anytime, any place, our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day. This is from the Illuminati playing card game, where it has the likeness of not only Trump, but behind Trump, what are supposed to be bullet holes actually look like COVIDs. But enough is enough seems to be code for this incoming sniping of Trump. Biff Don found this. Jake Gyllenhaal, aka Donnie Darko, stars in Presumed Innocent. Now, Presumed Innocent is an 8-hour thriller. Now, fascinatingly, it debuts on Donald Trump's birthday. Your Mama says American Pie is long and prophetic. Well, you know, she definitely beat that song's record. So there's this connection there, American Pie, and the plane crash thing. Very interesting. Okay, someone else says the song makes a reference, according to a theory, to Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix. Oh, like the 27 Club. You know, it may be some kind of inside industry reference to manufactured tragedies to boost record sales or whatever they're doing it for. I mean, for example, you can find there's this one called the Die Young curse, Roddy Ricch, and all these various rappers fall prey to this Die Young curse, which is a great way to get attention. You know, faking deaths, that's what rappers do to sell records. But even in this one, it's very specific, where he's in the graveyard saying he doesn't want to die young, and there on his iPhone screen you see Nipsey Hussle, who then dies young shortly after. Thrustazar says some BS about CERN just popped up in the fake news. Just in time for Mandela's birthday. Thrustazar says they planned this out for a long time. Trump was talking about being POTUS with Oprah back in the 80s. Yeah, no doubt. I think you're right about that. He was 33 at the time, wasn't he? Tyrone McCloskey says Joplin became Amy Goodman. Oh, Democracy Now! I can see that. Jimmy became Cornel West. You know, I've seen that Jimmy became, was it Morgan Freeman? I don't really see it. Although people have, and Morgan Freeman even said people have compared him to Hendrix or mixed him up for Hendrix, but I don't know about Cornel West. Okay, let's continue. Scripted NFL. A lot of people are picking up on the scripted NFL. Maybe I'll play this clip here if you haven't heard this. Regarding Sunday's Super Bowl, CBS Sports Chairman Sean McManus quipped, quote, "The NFL has alerted us that for the first time ever, we will have a double overtime game in the Super Bowl."
In plain sight. They continue to joke about how the script this, the script that. This is truth in plain sight. There's a reason they had an ad campaign for the NFL about the script. Because the league is scripted. It is just like the WWE. So this is why you see them.
So here's an article he's referencing. NFL stars joke at scripted memes to celebrate their 104th season. The NFL pokes fun at pop culture memes that suggest the NFL is scripted in its "You Can't Make This Stuff Up" ad campaign to celebrate its 104th season. So they're getting in front of it because they have to. And this is probably because of Jake, the a-hole Gibson. And if you think about it, how much damage control are they going to have to do because it's just him alone? How much money is he costing them attacking or really just exposing how it is scripted? It's not only fakeable and scripted, but they're constantly hijacking the sports for pushing culture war stuff, political stuff. They're inseparable. It's no longer simply about athletics. So I don't think anybody should be miffed about people saying that sports are scripted. Like you were miffed back when they told us that wrestling was fake. Like you're just going to have to accept it.
Them continuing to joke about it being scripted over and over and over again. And then you're going to have the gullible fanboys say, oh, they're just kidding around. They're just joking, blah, 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 blah. But what they are really doing is they are telling you truth in plain sight.
Again, the CBS sports chairman said that they've alerted us for the first time ever we're going to have double overtime. Jake the A-hole says, you're welcome for NFL scripted being a viral topic. I take full credit. Well, you've reached the tipping point where like they have to ignore, but then there's a point where they have to just claim it. And we've seen this in many different instances. They ignore it until it gets too big, and then they have to drown you out. So they're doing damage control. We've been talking about Taylor Swift lost at sea. Many indications here. Again, she's in the same category as Marilyn Monroe. And did she drown or was it just an overdose? Princess Di, Amelia Earhart, female icons, tragic deaths. Marilyn Monroe has some JFK connections, which is kind of intriguing. Princess Di, JFK Jr. are connected in the imaginations of Irano-maniac-stricken QAnoners, who kind of really have delved into fan fiction as a form of do-it-yourself religion. They make it up as they go. Here's a piece from 777. He says, there are connections between Earhart and Swift, suggesting Swift will meet the same fate. She'll make a 13-hour flight to the Super Bowl. Will she make it? And he remarks here that there are connections they've made. Amelia Earhart was recently discovered in the news. They found her plane, which crashed into the Pacific, and CNN called her the Taylor Swift of the time. These are just a few of the connections, and I think what we're seeing here, of course, is some kind of a setup for a massive psychological operation, and they don't always have to blow things up. If they can just get everybody to cry at the same time, I guess it accomplishes the same. Jake the A-hole says, you got me thinking something big may go down rather than just a football game. Oh yeah, I have not even looked at this as a football game. I'm like, why are we taking bets on who wins the game? Let's take a bet on whether it's an EMP blackout, a nuke, they snipe Trump, a MAGA snipes Swift, her plane goes down. Like, that's what I'm interested in. Which one of those is going to happen? And all the predictive programming suggests blackouts. You've got the sphere, and some guy named Mason just climbed the sphere today, the Las Vegas sphere. You had U2 dropping, detonating Atomic City, where U2 performs there, U2 being a spy plane, but it's like, wait, they have a video where they actually nuke Vegas. And even Musk drew my attention to this. He posted an image of Vegas, New Vegas fallout, which is about, high altitude nukes would bring like nuclear winter, fallout. You'll have to go home and lock down. And that's not the only two examples. There's a few others that all connect to this theme of blackouts. And then all the connections between Super Bowl 47, the Blackout Bowl, and this one also indicate this. Leave the World Behind. 2013 was that Blackout Bowl. And the year of Leave the World Behind, on the anniversary of Superstorm Sandy, National Geographic released a movie called American Blackout. And in American Blackout, then President Obama had a cameo where he said something about because of the blackout, everybody needs to just obey. So they put this story out there in advance. It's been building up, and I've been looking forward to Super Bowl 47 as some key event having to do with the future presidential race for 47. And then again, we have this recent introduction of Lee Harvey Oswald back to the world stage. Jay Digg says Taylor Swift previously dated RFK Jr.'s sons. See, Taylor Swift it should be noted here, she was considered to be the Aryan princess of the incel right, Miss America Pie, American Pie, and for her to join Team Biden is like a huge diss. And this is also the year of Barbie, Barbie feminism. And what does she represent? She's being attacked by alt-right types because she's 34, which in their minds means that she's missed the opportunity to have a few dozen babies, and she's not settled down. In fact, they say she has no market value. Like Matt Walsh, like, oh, she's too old to be chained to the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant, like their new MAGA ban ideal. So she's already made herself an enemy. This is in the culture war, and she's completely contradicted the other side. And if you look at the Turner Diaries narrative and the white nationalist attitude towards the liberalism and progressivism, it's almost like they hate people on their side who've gone to the other side more than they hate their enemies. They call them race traders. So race trader Swift is being targeted by the MAGAs, and you can find MAGAs who are saying, if she endorses Biden, we need to, quote, punish the bee. They've actually said that. Punish the bee. Okay, this is from Sports Illustrated. 49ers Brock Purdy perfectly handled reporter's awkward question about Lee Harvey Oswald. TMZ. 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy told he looks a lot like Lee Harvey Oswald. Now again, the connection here, the number 47 Blackout Bowl, he's the quarterback of this one, the corresponding. Then you have, of course, the shooter at the 4th of July parade obsessed with the number 47 and Lee Harvey Oswald. There's even a game called Hitman, which has a 47 on it. But the reason why they brought out Lee Harvey Oswald, I think, would also connect with this Leave the World Behind and this whole QAnon fixation on JFK. But they brought this out as an element. And then we have these stories, multiple stories of snipers that I've been referencing. And then there was the shooting in Prague on the solstice, if you recall, where he was on a balcony and they said, oh, there was blood left on these iconic marble steps. So you have a sniper shooting people, blood on the steps. On the same day, pro-Hamas supporters threw fake blood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. So sniper, blood on the steps in front of the Lincoln Memorial on the same day. I mean, these are contiguous stories. They don't exist in isolation. The media should be considered monolithic when you're analyzing it from a metascript perspective, when they write our history, when they describe our zeitgeist. Now, if you remember this, and I've been talking about Kaepernick, and so this is where it gets this is why I think it's significant. If you recall, you had Eminem perform at the Super Bowl, and he did that song One Shot, and then he kneels for Kaepernick. Like, why was he kneeling for Kaepernick? What is the story here? But it says here the rapper took a knee after performing as a nod to Kaepernick's protest. And this song, One Shot, is the one that Vivek Ramaswamy was performing. So it's been kind of floating around recently. Now, again, we're talking about Kaepernick, the kneeling. I'm not quite sure where it all goes, but One Shot does seem like a shot heard round the world type reference. All right. Oh, this is another one. Alec Baldwin is... No, who cares? Alec Baldwin... Well, I guess we should mention this. He is 66 and 6 days. And I guess it matters because Alec Baldwin has one of the most pronounced cases of Trump derangement syndrome. But if you remember, he played Trump as a twin in Saturday Night Live. So he's this Trump figure. And he did shoot not just Helena Hutchins, which has all kinds of connections to the Hunt for Red October, Ukraine, but he also shot the director Joel Souza, who has Trump's birthday. I remember thinking at the time, man, he really hated Trump. He shot somebody with Trump's birthday. But there's just too much here to ignore. These are all just little pieces of the puzzle. And then there's this. This is from Corporal Joe Bowers. He says, in Rocky IV, they give away the World War III script. Ivan Drago knocks out and kills Apollo. Ivan Dragon equals Russia and China. Interesting. And we're entering Year of the Dragon on the 10th. Or on the, is it the 10th? This weekend. Apollo is the USA. Rocky then gets revenge by beating Drago. Rocky Balboa represents Donald Trump, who rises like a phoenix from the ashes of USA's destruction as the Antichrist. Interesting story. You can connect Apollo to Apollyon to Napoleon, which recently had that movie with Joaquin Phoenix. You can also connect the Apollyon to Terminator. Terminator 2 coming back. The Terminator, Destroyer, Apollyon, Abaddon. These are all referenced in Revelation 9:11 with regard to the Antichrist, which has all been really strongly connected to Trump. For as much as the QAnons think that he's Jesus, if anything, he's the Antichrist. At least that's how he's been scripted here. None of this surprises me. All right, continuing here. Now this is fascinating. So we already mentioned this. Toby Keith was responsible for signing Taylor Swift to her first record deal. He just passed away, same initials as her present boyfriend. But another coincidence here. Clean and Swift financial system. Sounds like a marker. People have made these connections. I'm not sure where to go with it, but it's worth paying attention to. Even with Leave the World Behind and the flood references and the connections to the death of Matthew Perry seem to indicate the flood being some kind of a sinking of a financial Titanic. That maybe it's not literally like water, but something else. All right, moving on. More fake news stuff to get into here on Sean Hannity. I'll probably get into in just a moment. It has to do with migrants, but I have one more thing I want to get to. This is it. Marilyn Monroe, they compared her. Now, she died at 36, barbiturate overdose, on August the 4th, so 8/4. Just that date kind of stood out. Where they talked about the Disney Oswald, this new spin-off. Okay, now this is the next thing. On Sean Hannity, he had this group on called the Guardian Angels, and they were active during 2020, and they were there to maintain order, but they seemed kind of phony. Guardian Angels rough up man during a live interview. Quote, "Our guys have just taken down one of the migrants right here on 42nd and 7th, he told Hannity. They're taking over. So Hannity requested that the camera be turned to face the action, and the Guardian Angels could be seen surrounding a man, shoving him and forcing him to the ground. Later, the Guardian Angels returned to tell Sean Hannity what happened. He'd been shoplifting. The Guardian spotted him, stopped him, and he resisted, so he gave him pain compliance. His mother back in Venezuela felt the vibrations. He's sucking concrete. The cops scraped him off the asphalt. He's on his way to jail, but they'll cut him loose." So this guy talking tough about beating up a migrant in front of the cameras for the Sean Hannity show has already admitted publicly to faking crimes for publicity, including an incident where his group were stopping muggings back in 1992. So in other words, this group, these Guardian Angels, have been fake crime fighting for 30 years. And Sean Hannity calls them up and has them on his show so they can talk about fighting illegal immigrants. Let me go ahead and play this. Just want to show you just how these news agencies, they make their own fake news, dramatized reality TV style fake news, and they don't have to worry about real stuff happening. It's much more predictable when they can just make it up. So again, the Guardian Angels. And this makes me rethink what they were doing back in Kenosha. They were in Kenosha, and they were supposedly trying to maintain order against Antifa. And even then, I noticed all kinds of strange all-seeing eye symbolism on them. I didn't find any of it believable. So here they are.
The streets of New York City. Former mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa is with us. He likes chocolate over vanilla. It sounds a little like Louis Farrakhan to me there. $53 million in debit cards for 500 people, on top of $180 million for more hotel rooms in New York, on top of the $1 billion that Biden has given people that enter our country illegally.
Okay, so they're talking about this border psyop, which I say is a psyop. It's fake. And here we're going to have a scene where all of a sudden they're going to stop a migrant from shoplifting live on TV.
Yep.
There's the camera.
You got your key open, guys.
Shaky camera, very dramatic.
He is out of control. Out of control.
The guy they're pushing around has a hoodie on. Anyway, I'm guessing that this is fake and staged. So after the action, they come back in front of the camera in their red uniforms. And these are individuals who've been convicted of faking crime-fighting antics 30 years ago.
Felt the vibrations. He's sucking concrete. The cops scraped him off the asphalt. He's on his way to jail, but they'll cut him loose. We got to take 42nd Street back, Sean. These illegals think they own this street. They think they...
We got to take 42nd Street back. Now that's interesting. The number 42 plays a strong, heavy role in a lot of these psyops involving borders and, of course, the black versus white dialectic. But anyway, Guardian Angels doing some performance art for Sean Hannity. It's pathetic. Catch up on your comments. All right, let's see here. Gematria 101 said the Blackout Bowl had the Ravens winning. 33 passes, 22 catches. 11 years ago. Right. My Third Eye says, if Taylor Swift dies, will the headline be world famous Chiefs fan dies? Right. Like those 3 guys that froze to death. It's like 3 Chiefs fans died. Like, so if I die, they're going to see, hey, what's his favorite sports team? He doesn't like sports. This guy that doesn't like sports died. Thank you, Multi C0 Dagger. We at the IPS appreciate the support there. Into the Beyond says, Tucker's been hanging with Purdy. What's the psyop there? Or is Tucker just a desperate attention? Well, Tucker's a world stager. You know, I don't look to him like this is the strange thing, and I understand it. The red pill truther community believes that all they need to do is wake up the blue pillars. So they think that by reaching for mainstream outlets, they can get enough credibility, they'll get some truth through. Oh, if we can just get Tucker to say something about 9/11. And that approach never works because alt media is there to be the heel of the mainstream media. And Tucker is a fake populist who got fake kicked out of Fox, so he has credibility on X. He's as credible as Musk. You know Musk is faking space. Like nobody wants to talk about that. Musk is faking space. You think Starlink satellites are orbiting? No, look up Loon X. Loon LLC, Loon X. Everything Starlink satellites are reported to do could be done by these stratospheric balloons. My contention is they never stopped Loon X. They just sold it to Elon Musk for SpaceX, and he said, hey, let's just say these things are orbiting. So people don't find out about the balloons up there. The balloon mesh. The grid of stratospheric balloons that deliver internet anywhere in the world. Jake the A-hole says, suddenly the migrant videos are all the rage on YouTube. Their entire channel is dedicated to ganging around the border and making migrant content. Maybe we should get in on this. Yeah, there's a direct pipeline from anti-vax to closed border. And it's psychological warfare at its finest. So the people who've been made insecure about their skin being penetrated, their skin is a border, are the same ones who are marketed a constant stream of insecurity about their homes and their small towns, you know, being victimized by communists. So they need the Second Amendment to protect their home borders. But now the national border is being tapped into. Not a coincidence that a few months ago it was all about how the aliens coming in from another world into our atmosphere, through this border, are now dark and evil. So this is all just a psyop, border insecurity. And there's a reason why only anti-vaxxers will care about open borders, because the pro-vaxxers want open borders, both on their bodies and on the nations. It's all a psyop, and it has to do with your relationship to power. One has a view of total, I guess, love for big government. They embrace Big Brother, totally porous, and the other side's totally closed. But it's all by design. So anybody who's playing into this is just showing me that they're propaganda mules for the bifurcated psywar. And I don't take sides because I'm not carrying anybody's propaganda narratives. I'm not going to be part of their fear porn matrix. Like, oh, I'm scared of military-age men. The same people bitching about the lack of real men are now mad about men coming in by the tens of millions. They're like, oh, the men today, they're too progressive. They're like Ken dolls. They're non-binary. They don't have traditional religious values. Well, you're importing by your own propaganda military-age men with traditional values, and Muslims perhaps might have more in common with the MAGA ban than anything here. Certainly more than progressives. So it just seems like that would also get rid of the problem of depopulation. The same people who are worried about, oh, we're being depopulated, they're killing us all. Well, here you have 20 million people coming in. Jake the A-hole says, I love your take on the Chiefs fan, Tim. A Chiefs fan, a 49ers fan, and a guy who doesn't like football died. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It has to be contrived. There's no way you're going to identify three people by their sports jerseys unless it has some bigger meaning. I thought it might mean something like nuclear winter. It could be that kind of a foreshadowing, but there must be some other meaning to it. We have to remember that this is part of a bigger script. But yeah, it would have been funnier if it was like, oh, Chiefs fan, a 49ers fan, and some guy who just wasn't there for the sports. Sports ambivalent. Tons of people are buying the Chiefs fan dying story. Some call it a ritual sacrifice. Others say it's a Fenty overdose. Meanwhile, we just say it's fake, says Jake the A-hole. Yeah, so the mainstream this is the difference. MSM, MSM plus, MSM minus. The only skeptics subtract the unverifiables. So the mainstream believer thinks, yeah, 3 people died. And they probably froze to death, or it was a drug cocktail from their friend called the chemist. But the MSM plus, the conspiracy theorists, will say, yeah, they died, but it was also a sacrifice. So they accept the premise, but then they throw on some extra sauce. Those of us who are being critical thinkers about it are saying, okay, well, it's fake until proven real. We have no evidence, so there's no reason to assume it's real, but it's a component to a broader story. Erica Creech says, the streets are taking on a new character in New York City with migrants loitering around. I guess they don't play video games day and night. And that's according to what you've seen on the screen. I think that the border insecurity psyops are played out. They do it every election cycle. And I constantly hear people say, military-age men, military-age men. And I've heard it from so many different voices across so many different platforms that I know it's a talking point that has been put out there on purpose. And it's meant to intimidate insecure, conservative men in America who think that they're being overrun and they're being invaded. And some people will say, we are being invaded, you're underreacting. And I'm saying you're overreacting. You can deal with the psychosomatic effects of all that stress, of being plugged into the emotional ups and downs of the news cycles of abuse. Because that's what it is. It's all psychological abuse if you think about it. Okay, continuing. Someone's going to have to set up a bet somewhere, maybe on BetMoose. Let's bet on what's going to happen. Again, the 13-hour flight, according to 777 thinks, she'll be leaving Tokyo, which is near Papua New Guinea, where she departed on her final voyage. Earhart crashed into the Pacific. Now, CNN was the one who made this point. CNN said that Amelia Earhart was the Taylor Swift of her time. And again, she's been saying this on MTV and other places. I was born on the 13th, turned 13 on Friday the 13th. My album went gold in 13 weeks. Everywhere she goes, she sits at 13. She's made this a point to bring it up. And of course, this will be her 13th visit at the Super Bowl. We'll move on past this. If anybody has any more ideas or any more to add to this, but one of the main connections that I think has been made that's worth repeating really quick here is the Princess Diana connection, and the death of Diana being connected to paparazzi stalking, that she was chased under a bridge avoiding paparazzi. So here she is being stalked online. Her jet is being tracked, and their attorneys are saying, yeah, something could happen where someone who has negative intentions, like for example, her plane could be hijacked. I mean, think about the propaganda victory that would be for the enemies of America to take out a living, walking embodiment of Barbie feminism. And who would have an interest in this? Well, the MAGA ban, for sure. Okay, let's continue here. Tomorrow we're going to have a conversation between Alex Jones and David Icke, and Elon Musk may join in. According to Alex Jones, he kind of hinted at it. We'll see. A couple of gatekeepers who can't admit that they don't know what the world is, so they go with the default model and still believe in fake space. Like if it's 2024, I mean it's 2024, and if you've known about this flat Earth topic for like 5 or 6 years, um, I'm not saying that anyone should think it's flat, but I'm saying if anybody is still accepting that they know what it is, they have to admit at this point you're taking a leap of faith that you only believe, and that's all you can really state. There's a level of agnosticism that we're kind of being forced to accept here. All right, let me scroll through my Twitter feed. I want to make sure we don't miss anything. Okay, let's see here. Jennifer Crumbly, the mother of 2021 Michigan school shooter, has been found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Crumbly was a school shooter who looked strikingly similar to Kyle Rittenhouse, and that story was basically a school shooter who got a gun for Christmas. Brock Purdy compared to Oswald. We'll continue to follow that story. And then, of course, Oswald the bunny being released. Ominous. Again, I'm looking at much of this as predictive programming and a build-up for some kind of JFK-esque event. Joined by Maxi D. Says, Home Sweet Dome, God is real. Now, I don't know about domes. I find that to be an interesting concept because what it does is similar to the globe. A dome puts a boundary, turns it into a finite model, and separates it from what's outside of it. And I don't think we have enough information to say that the world itself is a discrete object. I don't think it is. Jake the A-hole says, Alex Jones admitted he is Bill Hicks and also that he's not Bill Hicks, both instances to make it look like he's just joking. Well, recently I've been calling Bill Hicks Bill Hicks. And he put out a video on Twitter to say that he's actually a clone of Hitler. Like, why would you want to associate yourself with Hitler? There must be some reason. Is he trying to distract people? Now here we go. Trump Tower, he has all these references to Apollo. He adorned his condo with Apollo everything. In fact, Michael in Truth has done quite a lot here along the lines of Trump as Antichrist, and that's the reason for the head wound thing. The entire head wound thing we're talking about has to do with Revelation 10:13 or 13:10, and it has to do with the idea of a world leader getting shot in the head and then rising from the dead. According to Priceline data given to CNN, round trips between Kansas City and Vegas are averaging $666. Nothing to see here. The Parallax View. Now, I haven't watched this yet, but someone referenced this movie yesterday. TV journalist witnesses the assassination of a presidential aspirant atop the Seattle Space Needle, and that movie was released in 1974 on Donald Trump's birthday. And then this, The Sphere, which we mentioned, U2 did a song there, a video, Atomic City, video in which they nuke Vegas, and the Sphere Vegas Twitter account says, Sunday is going to be fire. Sunday is going to be fire. Precisely the kind of inside jokes that you would be expecting. More headlines pointing fingers at suspects. America's white male meltdown starts with Taylor Swift and ends with Justin Moan. And Justin Moan was calling for violence against feds at the border. And he had a Moan's militia. He was calling for militiamen to go take out feds at the border. And now we have a militiaman at the border calling for exactly that. Another reason why it's probably smart not to take sides is that if you take a side, you're going to be saddled up with some of these shady characters. Another fascinating connection, Mandalay Bay shooting, 10/1/2017. 58 people were allegedly killed that day, not including the perpetrator. And this is the Harvest Festival, just down the street from where the Super Bowl is occurring at the Death Star. And the Death Star Stadium is pretty much just a massive satanic altar. I think that would be the best way to explain it. And there's this interesting thing. The enslaved Native Americans who made the gold rush possible, a number of people have been pointing out the connections between the gold rush, the 49ers, and the Chiefs. And then we have this story about the young Chiefs fan who is accused of being racist for wearing blackface. And interestingly, Leave the World Behind has a reference to a character that shows somebody doing the tomahawk chop. And this scandal with this kid happened basically right after the movie came out. So more concurrent programming. But anyway, that kid's in the news right now. I think he's getting some kind of a settlement or something, or he's suing. Again, Lex 18 News. In the 1930s, Amelia Earhart was an icon, a record-breaking aviator, as famous as Taylor Swift. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, didn't you live in Vegas for a time? If you were there, would you leave for the weekend? No, I wouldn't leave. I would actually go there and record it. I would definitely record it. Lean Dion says, concurrently, Killers of the Flower Moon, an Apple movie. Now, I was thinking about that. Killers of the Flower Moon. You have Miley Cyrus just won a video or some award for a song called Flowers. And then the Moon Goddess connection with Taylor Swift. There's some symbolism being tossed out there. Jake the A-hole says, does anybody remember the movie The Rock from the 90s? It had homegrown terrorists threatening to bomb a 49ers game in San Francisco. All right, well, phones, if anyone has anything to add, you can call in. It's 505-349-0420. I can set up Discord. It's just I recall it being very resource intensive. You can find the Skype app, and then it's Infinite Plane Radio. Let's see, normal here. Missouri Republican candidate torches LGBTQ books with flamethrower. I expected them to be burning Harry Potter books by now, but they're still stuck on this. Recently, they've been really hyping up the satanic panic. And look, my view on the satanic panic and these moral panics from the right is that these are part of the, again, bifurcated psy-war. The right doesn't believe in viruses or vaccines, but they believe in sin and possession. They believe in the devil, that kind of thing. So they believe in the traditional concepts of sin, and they believe it's spread through social contagion. That's why they hate the idea of pride, because they're spreading it socially, spreading sin. And their whole religious paradigm is based on essentially the same thing that the progressives believe, which is you have to stay pure from sin, but their version of sin is called the virus, and it's carried by the other side, who don't get vaxxed, so they're the carriers. They believe in misinformation, so they don't trust their church, which is the MSM. So you basically have this split here, this schism, where progressives believe in this modern concept of sin called the virus, with the modern priesthood that can save you with the modern Eucharist, the vax, and the other side sticks to their traditional version. One side doesn't believe in the traditional version, but they have their modern replacements for it. COVID is a devil the atheists will believe in. And we saw in 2020 a puritanical revolution among the godless atheists who, while they might laugh at Noah's Ark and God and flood myths because of sin and wickedness, they believe in ark storm because Noah told them, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They just have a replacement theology. It's just dressed up like science fiction. It's a science fiction religion. Erica Creech says, Miley looks fake now. McDirtywork says, I've had that thought. If we were in a closed dome system, why the change in air pressure at altitude? Well, no one's ever proven the existence of a dome. They start with the dome, and I'm like, we don't have enough information. And you're arguing about something that's out of reach, out of sight, and nobody's talking about lateral exploration. Just keep walking in a straight line. Jake the A-hole says, I thought about driving out there. It's an 8-hour drive to Vegas. Crowds and traffic will be insane. Well, it's going to be, whatever happens, it's going to be taking place on a closed movie set. But if you get close, maybe you can be a witness to something and they'll make you sign an NDA. You could be a crisis actor. And Vegas has been the subject of the nuke stuff for some time. Again, Fallout New Vegas. Can't be a coincidence. Thrustazar says, you've seen those rockets spiraling against the dome. That is absurd. I wish people would stop saying that. If there is a dome, it's a lot higher than what you will see from a rocket. It'll be out of sight, out of mind. You wouldn't see it in a spectacular way if the dome was that close to your head. Like, it would be so much higher if that were the case. But when people say the dome, it's like, well, okay, well, domes are dome-shaped. Why are you assuming a dome shape? What's the curve of your dome? Is it higher in the middle? Does it touch the ground at the edges? Like, this idea of constructing a model and defending it is just premature. Commenter says, I think 49ers will win. Money's heavy on KC. Yeah, I'm definitely not so much interested in the outcome of the game so much as the world stage psychological operation that's going to be put out there. Commenter here says, let's not forget the film London Has Fallen was released on 3/4/16. He's made some connections with London is Falling and King Charles diagnosed with cancer. Yeah, I haven't followed the King Charles thing very much, but everything about it seems fake and contrived. And they're always separated by a specific number of days, which is always very strange. But one thing we have noted, at the Grammys, they made numerous references to this princess archetype. And the Princess Diana and Taylor Swift, well, you know, the incels were calling her Princess Tay for the longest time. So there's nothing new here. And the princess thing must be part of this. I think it's a reboot of Princess Diana. Got a video from John LeBon. He says, do you think pro sports are rigged? I found some undercover footage of them admitting it. Undeniable proof that pro sports are scripted.
Finally, we have undeniable proof that professional sports is all rigged. And I'm going to show you that evidence in just a moment. Bear in mind that the coronavirus was officially characterized.
Okay, so this is a video from John LeBon. It's about 6 minutes long. I'm going to put a link below. Go ahead and click that link if you want to bookmark this video for later. I haven't watched it, but it looks like he's getting into the meta-scripting behind Djokovic Novak's 33-game streak and his strange comments about hanging in a tree for 33 minutes. There's quite a lot in this video. So I put a link down there so you can check it out. He's done some great work on this this Novak character. I'll play about 30 seconds of it, but again, link is below.
Of 113 when the coronavirus began officially, according to the World Health Organization. We have the 113 in the background when Novak was sensationally ejected from the US Open. And Novak Djokovic's recent 33-game winning streak came to an end against a sinner. So what is my evidence, my undeniable evidence that professional sports are all rigged? I'll present it to you right now. On the screen is Andy Murray, a multiple Grand Slam winner. Listen to what he has to say in this leaked footage that I've got my hands on.
I mean, I think that's what people don't realize. Like, it's all just scripted. Like, the players, the matches, it's all just kind of made up.
It's all just scripted. It's all just made up. I've got more where that came from. Here we see covert footage from behind the scenes of...
Now, he may be slightly facetious here, but it's a worthwhile discussion to have how much of it is scripted and faked. It's undeniable that much of the soap opera on the side is simply that. A lot of story, a lot of narrative, a lot of culture war, meme stuff. But as far as the actual athletics, that's a little more difficult to fake, obviously, on the face of it. However, there are other tricks to the trade. You know, what about magnetic goalposts? What about gloves? You know, magnetic gloves balls with metal in them, all sorts of tricks. And then we see things like the Damar Hamlin ritual where he fake dies, gets resurrected, they drag him out in a U-Haul truck. Something like that would necessarily involve all the players being in the know, at a minimum, on conducting some kind of weird ritual theater that involves tricking and deceiving the entire public. So there's no doubt that sports have been compromised and converted and being made a huge part of the bigger mind control apparatus. Why would it be any different? This is the bread and circuses. Angle of Elevation says pro sports is fake. Well, I'm shocked. People are shocked. Some people would find that to be incomprehensible. Oh, there's no way. One of the arguments that I hear in Matt Walsh level thinking, they're like, there's no way that this many people could keep a secret. Oh, really? Like, look, if you're in the military, you know that there are people with security clearances that know things you don't know. And the people who know things you don't know, and people know things they don't know, become increasingly smaller the higher up the pyramid it goes. The idea of security clearances, of stratified information held on a need-to-know basis, I mean, how many people are in the know at the very end of one of these big psyops? Well, it's fewer and fewer people. But the idea that some secrets are too big to keep is naive, it's lazy, and it's just factually inaccurate. But what I find interesting too is I'm kind of delving into this topic here is the role of sports and media in general in loosh aggregation, loosh harvesting. What does it mean? This harvesting of attention. And this stuff does go deep into the weeds. I mean, this bizarro performance of The Weeknd, a guy named Abel, where he's pretending like he's got a head wound for months on end. Who does that? Who walks around pretending like they have a head wound? Like, that's just strange in and of itself. But the connections between this Super Bowl event and this quarterback being associated with Lee Harvey Oswald can be extracted simply by looking at a breakdown of the initials and the dates. And it tells a story here, which, whether or not we can predict 100% what's going on, it tells us that there's an ongoing story and it's all interconnected. By predictive programming, Taylor Swift dies in a plane crash. This was a hangout on X that somebody had earlier. And I went ahead and I just put out an article on this because I thought, why wait? Why wait until after the fact to call it out? We have enough information. Let's just call it in advance and see what happens. It's not like they're going to change something. And if they did, I mean, I don't think they would, but if enough people called out something, do you think they would alter it? No. Because I think at the end of the day, they know that they're going to scrub all non-canonical texts as they consolidate this new Bible, which is what your mainstream media is. You might as well consider it to be the Bible of the dominant world view / religion, scientism, technocracy. What are we going to call it? Cryptopsy? Elephant Tusk says, Tim, you will never understand this reality if you approach it with logic. Logic went out the window in 2020. No, I think logic is the only reason why we've seen anything clearly here. Like, for example, people still fall for loaded questions. Simple sleight of mind. And if you don't understand how logical fallacies are used to coerce you into making choices with not enough information, rushing to judgment, emotional appeals, if you don't understand that, then you get plugged into an alternate reality game where now suddenly you're afraid of clouds, cirrus clouds, because you can't admit that you've been wrong for 5+ years, that you've been carrying propaganda for the enemy, that you've been spreading fear needlessly. But the loaded questions get past people all the time. Well, what are they spraying? What are they spraying? You just shifted the burden of proof to me, so now I have to answer your question, and I have to provide evidence. And you've smuggled in the premise that it's a spray. If you saw a dirt bike going across the desert and there's a trail of dust behind it, are you going to point to your friend and say, hey, what is that thing spraying? No. The wheel has kicked up dust. Similarly, there's an effect of the jet engines in the high atmosphere that does not necessitate a spray. But if you throw in the word spray, you automatically include an entire list of things it could possibly be pertaining to substances that are being covertly dumped on us. But if they didn't ask it like that, if they used no logical fallacies and said, what is the trail behind the plane? Well, then you would be able to get to an answer based on facts, not based on an argument from ignorance, which is a third logical fallacy built into the chemtrail theorists' premise. Argument from ignorance, shifting the burden of proof, loading the question. So no, logic is what gets us out of this labyrinth. And I would say too that I'm one of the few that understand this reality because I have separated it from the internalized worldview that the consensus has adopted, the one that the massified mind has no trouble with. The person who's still a Truman in a Truman Show. So no, it is logic that has actually enabled me to think my way out of 90% of their psyops. And most of the psyops, most of the logical fallacies, most of the sleight of mind manipulation tactics are coming from truthers. Let's see what we have here. My Third Eye says, who's playing at halftime? Remember Janet Jackson? Yeah, the Janet Jackson thing was what really woke me up to the symbolism. Because I remember I was having a discussion at the time where someone was like, this is a ritual to Bridget. This is a ritual to this Celtic goddess, and it has to do with the nursing of the sun god. And so when she rips off her top and exposes her breast, she has a solar designed piercing on her nipple. Well, what is that? Well, it represents the weaning of the sun god, symbolized by Justin Timberlake with the blonde hair. So you have the Sun King, you have the weaning symbolism on a green field on the weekend of Imbolc / Candlemas. It was definitely a ritual, not a wardrobe malfunction. The 33 minutes of darkness during the 47th Super Bowl, yeah, it wasn't like Beyonce got done performing and kicked a power cord and it all went dark. It wasn't like they used up all the power. No, they shut it off for 30 minutes. 33 minutes. Why? Probably had a pizza party under the bleachers. I don't know why. I'm not sure what they did, but that 33-minute period was very, very symbolic, obviously. We'll have to revisit some of the mind maps. A few things I want to kind of just bring back really quick here, because trutherism is worse than the mainstream media. Trutherism and mainstream media are two sides of the same psychological warfare operation, and truthers are still plugged into it. You're not anti-war if you are a truther. Just letting you know, you are a warmonger. And I think it's really important to point out that what we're doing here, because I've been getting harangued by neo-Nazis who are worried about being replaced and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care about your struggle, about Mein Kampf. I don't care whatsoever about identity politics or which celebrity you're putting your faith into, whoever you're voting for. Like, that is not really my purview. And so I want to make the point that the people who are still playing world stage politics aren't part of what we're doing. A fake mainstream and fake alternative media constitute the world stage fictional universe. The world stage fictional universe is the construct, the internalized representation of the world that the consensus agrees upon. It's a ball, Earth, nukes are real, dinosaurs existed, got killed, Earth's getting hot because of Republicans. You have this basic structure that everything else conforms to. And that structure, I'm saying, is a construct built on lies designed to enslave the multitudes in subjective belief systems, preventing them from being knowers of objective reality. In fact, they obliterated objective reality the instant they plugged everybody in to the screen when we merged with the monolith, which probably happened permanently with the advent of the atomic bomb fakery. It was further deepened by the JFK assassination, the moon landing, 9/11, and COVID. All these things served to drag all of mankind onto the world stage fictional universe construct. And there isn't a platform that represents those who have stepped outside because there's never been a huge network. Truthers have always been merged with alt media. And here's the problem. Alt media is a subset of mainstream media. Mainstream media is lies. Alt media builds on those lies. It does not subtract. We do. They're deeper in. Red pill's worse than blue pill. It really is. It's the same manufacturer. They make both of these drugs. The red pill's just a nightmare pill instead of a dream pill, but none of them are awake. They're all still asleep. So what we've done is we've broken away into what we call the parallel media. And I say parallel because we exist as a separate structure. And we are a growing network. And we are an increasingly self-aware demographic that recognize we're different from them. I'm not one of them. I'm not one of these red pill poppers chasing JFK Jr., believing the most absurd nonsense. I'm not panicked about the current thing. Like, oh, now it's a border crisis. Now I'm afraid of military-age men because somebody on the internet told me to be. Like, all these people who are running around with the current fear, yeah, that's not part of what we're doing here. Because fear is the primary weapon of the power elite. And so anyone who's pushing a fear-based narrative needs to be, looked at as somewhat suspect for a few reasons here. One of them is they're either duped or they're part of the program. There's not a lot of middle ground. And the reason why we have to take a hardline position here and really stand on the separate parallel media as like an off-world stage perspective, we have to be distinct. We have to make that distinction. Otherwise, there's no chance. I don't think there's any chance of a sizable group of people ever finding any kind of grasp of the truth. There's just no way. We have to challenge truth or orthodoxies for a few reasons. I have a list of things here I want to go through, but what's the point of this? Some say that I'm underreacting. I'm saying they're overreacting. Here's what my main point is this, and you're welcome to try to debate me, because there are people who spend all day screaming at the sky because they think it's toxic and ugly because of chemtrails. And I'm saying you've adopted a similar conspiracy theory to climate change. You've adopted cultural pessimism. You've allowed them to darken your worldview. They put you at war. Now you're oppressed. Now you're a victim. And I'm saying that this is all very disempowering. To willfully go into a state of war and think that you have the moral and intellectual high ground because you're so informed. No, you're misinformed. And the instant you take part in the Psy War, I would contend you lose the intellectual high ground because you're being led around by emotional appeals like puppet strings, and you've lost the moral high ground because you're part of a psychological warfare that targets people who have no defense against it. I'm a conscientious objector. I'm not a participant in this Psy War thing. So I've adopted what I call cognitive harmony, as opposed to the cognitive dissonance of the red pill truther or the apathy of the blue pill dreamer. And cognitive harmony is simply a state of quiescence and peace. I'm not even slightly bothered by aliens, even if they're demons, immigrants, even if they're military age, not scared of needles. I'm not really scared of any of the things, space lasers from China, Jewish space lasers, cabals, none of this stuff scares me. I'm not scared of Kevin Spacey or Tom Hanks. I'm not triggered by Taylor Swift. All right, let's continue here. Going through your comments, making sure I've mixed out. Oh, Salty Siren says mind blackout. Fascinating. And right now, people are adopting that headpiece. They're putting the visor on. They're driving around. People are on subways with their head, with a screen, like literally against their face. And you know what? You don't need the screen against your face like a digital hoodwink in order to be entered into the metaverse. We already live with an augmented reality with all of the superstitions, all of the fake news that they've grafted onto your internal concept of the world. We already live in an augmented reality. The process of auto-hoaxing is really clear-cutting the forest of misinformation, burning it down. And it's a process of unlying to oneself. There's a movie called Room, where, and it's based on a true story, where this 17-year-old is kidnapped, and she has a baby by her kidnapper, and she's raising him in a shed, and all he knows of the world is the shed, which they call room. When he's about 5, she feels like she's able to convey to him the predicament enough to help him escape, and she's trying to convince him that there's a world outside of room, just like on the TV. And he calls her a liar, and he screams and he cries. It reminds me of a Gloober when you tell them the world's not a ball. You know how they just fight you over it and they start crying, stomping their feet. Well, he throws a fit, and she says, "I'm not lying. I was lying to you your entire life. Now I am unlying." Unlying, which I don't know if it's a word, but they used it for the movie, and so I kind of use that word because the process of re-examining the concept of the world we've been given, it's like the Truman Show. He has to break the illusion. But a lot of it is not simply disbelieving the lies that you're told, but disbelieving the lies that you tell yourself. Like curverts who tell themselves that they can see the curve of the earth. Oh, they're lying. People who say, "I can see the space station," you're lying. I mean, you may be referencing something, but when you really get down to the specifics of the claims, you're probably lying. If you say you know somebody who knows somebody who died at this event, you're probably lying. We've encountered this so many times. We used to get people calling in, "I know somebody who knows somebody who died on 9/11. Don't say it's fake." What was her name? I don't remember. Oh, really? You know somebody who knows somebody who died at the most famous tragedy of all time, and you forgot their name? So we're just trying to reach a higher state of honesty here, and it involves the elimination of not only the enemy's gaslight, which they're always messing with, but also the cessation of auto gaslighting. You don't have to accept their burden of proof for their crappy news stories. You can just send it back and say, "I don't believe it. Give me more evidence, or I'm not going to accept it." Like, we do have that power. You actually have the power to be the arbiter over what you believe and what you don't find believable. And I choose, for the most part, to be a non-believer. I mean, I'm very interested in reality itself, and I'm very interested in it on not just the news media, separating real from fake, but also on our role in it. In fact, I'm reading a book right now that someone sent to me, and I'll probably do a review on it here soon. But it has to do with this very topic, and it's on a chapter on the author is making this point that if you put a lot of tragic news into your frame of reference, he just talks about how it affects your concept of the world, and he even goes so far as to say it helps bring things into your realm of possibility that wouldn't have been there otherwise. And he's making these fascinating points, and he suggests, abstaining from that kind of information, which I don't. If anything, I think being fully informed about it is the only way to be inoculated. I don't believe you can escape this thing. I think you have to deconstruct it. I think you have to clean your filter. You have to recognize that the window to the world that we've been given is a filter, but you have to recognize that your starting point is what needs to be altered, because everything goes through that. All right, let's see what we have here. Angle of Elevation says, "Pop culture is the most dangerous trap. You're forced to pick a side that won't ever win. But can you remain uninformed today? Maybe an EMP would be the best thing to happen." Yes, I divide people into misinformed, who are the masses, the uninformed, who don't pay attention, and then the informed, who are those of us paying attention and who are Psywar aware. Truthers are not informed. I include them among the misinformed. If you're on the world stage, if that's your reality construct, you're misinformed. The only people who are informed are the ones who know that's a lie. The ones who don't pay attention, the uninformed, they are vulnerable. They have no defense. They're simply at the mercy of whatever is put out to the TVs because they don't have enough information to decode it. And you don't have to watch every news story. You don't have to analyze every school shooting and every rocket launch. You can categorically debunk things. I don't have to watch the news. to remain informed and aware because I know what it is. You see, it's not a guessing game, and this is where truthers are wrong. They think, oh, the next event, false flag. Maybe it's real. Maybe it's a false flag. They don't even entertain the possibility that it didn't happen. What we have done here, what we're doing, this is a legitimate divergence. It's a breakaway. It's a breakaway in how we approach media itself and how we rob them of the power to get us to accept any proposition as like a loaded question. There's no benefit of the doubt anymore. My third eye says my friend who's in Brooklyn had a clear view of the WTC from his kitchen. The buildings were hidden by smoke. He had to watch it on TV. And that's what I would expect. People are like, well, how could you fake it? So many people. The people who ask these questions are 22 years too late. You should have been asking these questions a long time ago, because I knew months after September 11th that there were dozens and dozens of live drills being carried out that day. Now, I didn't know they were faking it all, but I'm like, wait, this is very conspicuous. You're telling me you have the manpower to fake it. You have 1,000 mass casualty actors. All of it was obviously, it's a scripted and fake theater built around a controlled demolition with video compositing and real-time news manipulation, but it's a magic trick. You don't have to insert anything. Like, you can just take away. Just take away from their premise and only stick with what you can verify. The only thing that I can verify is that this was movie magic. Played on the news. Actors, theatrics, special effects. No need to insert thermite, space lasers, tactical nukes, any of that garbage. 737 says, so what got us here? What makes us interested in this way of thinking that got us in this channel? Well, here's the reason why I think it's important to do what we're doing and this parallel media concept. Because look, the truthers are worried that we're letting our guard down. And I think they also have a bit of a feeling that they've sunken so much energy into this. They've invested so much into the fight, they can't walk away. But what I think the purpose of this, I think there's a few reasons. One, cognitive harmony replacing apathy and fear. Living in full awareness of the world stage as a model cures superstition, inoculates you against psychological operations. And then you channel that fear-based worldview into a different worldview that, if anything, has optimism, maybe curiosity. You're separate from the reactive mob. And personally, I think that there is no objectivism in the world today. It's been replaced by subjectivity. Even Ayn Rand's objectivists were filtered through the TV. So, in a way, this to me is something of a philosophical movement. But I think that clear perception of the world that is consistent with your internal version of the world is a prerequisite, I think, to this harmony. This even the ability to access creativity, intuition. I think a lot of this stuff is facilitated by releasing the cognitive surplus that would otherwise be plugged into meaningless bullshit, which is most of what we see. And then I also point out that we are also inactivists here. I do not advocate activism, taking sides, because I'm not part of their psywar. I really am not. I'm a peacenik in that sense. And anybody who claims they're anti-war, but they're still participating in InfoWar, you're not anti-war. InfoWar is part of it. And I don't think you win the war by taking a side in it. I'm going fully on with conscientious objection, and that's the only logical place to be. If you're at the point where you're ready to recognize that something the scale of a 9/11 or a COVID or any of these things can be faked on this level, if you understand what media is monolithically and globally, then you don't have any reason to be emotionally engaged to any of these topics or subjects. And you can watch people reacting to the current things like a bunch of scared sheep. And that level of ignorance is optional today. I can understand pre-2012, you recognize, okay, something sinister is going on. They're killing people. They want to take our guns. I can understand a lot of those narratives. Run for the hills, get your bug out bag, we're all going to die. But we've been through this enough cycles, enough recycled news that if you're still carrying propaganda for the fear-based alt media worldview, then I'm just saying you're a stooge at this point. Erica Creech says their lies and half-truths and propaganda brought me here. Well, trutherism is big money, and it's always co-opted. It's always controlled opposition. But here's what it's always lacked. Because you have people with good intentions who are all part of it. They think they're fighting the good fight, but it's always lacked a methodology. Their approach is everything's happening on TV, but there's more to the story. They've always been the MSM plus. They've always been a subset. They've always been through the looking glass, deeper into the matrix itself. The truthers have always been misled into going deeper into the lie. They've been the most deceived people with a false awakening. The red pill false awakening has been the firewall that has prevented multitudes from seeing through fake news for what it is. Not a coincidence that Trump co-opted the term fake news and all the conspiracy theorists in 2015, 2016. And moreover, until media deconstruction at our level, completely irreverent, we don't care about their feelings, their PC, their culture wars, their political dramas. We're completely objective about it, and we're accurate, and we're taking into account the multiple layers of storytelling involved. What we're doing is, it's new, but we're also, I'd say, cutting edge in this. But I think it has the potential to blow up. And that's why NFL is getting ahead of the scripted story. Because this could blow up. Because a lot of people hate having their intelligence insulted. You could say this is an intellectual revolt. I mean, are you not tired of being talked to like you're too stupid to tell the difference between real and fake, or too uneducated, or too visually illiterate, or that you're are you going to continue to go along with the gaslighting that pretends like crisis actors aren't a thing, that fake news events, simulated events aren't constantly passed off as real, that we're not shown fake dead people, rubber dead kids on TV to manipulate us? Like, it's important not to forget all these different things that we have pointed out and keep that in your assessment. Psyops, psychological operations, simulated news is the norm, not the exception. They don't do these once in a while to steer us in a certain direction. What we're doing is we are literally living through a prefabricated, pre-written history. And it's, Big Brother's story, his story, and it's going to be playing out as written, and it's going to be directed by the best directors they have on the world stage, unabated no matter what we do. And they know that eventually they're just going to delete all of our content, and whatever they carve in stone will be the final version. But what I'm mostly interested in, personally, because I don't know how far we can take this, I'm interested in what happens when we get 10,000 people who are auto-hoax aware, Psywar savvy, who know what's happening. We get 10,000 of us. It's like a battering ram. This is like an opportunity to see what kind of contortions, what kind of argumentation are they going to have to invent to hide this. Recently I've seen this movement come out called the Mental Immunity Project, and they're terrified of what they called a culture of disbelief that's being fomented online. And I'm like, where do you see that? Red pillars aren't disbelievers. They believe in alt-truths. The only culture of disbelief that I see are those of us who have seen the world stage as such. Those of us who have the real overview effect, not the one that the astronauts fake. And what I mean is, if you've seen the worldview as a model, not as just whatever we're shown is actually as it is, and you make that distinction, that's what I'm talking about. You have to have that breakaway to have any claim to objectivity. Doesn't mean we know the whole picture. It just means we know we're not being shown the entire thing. And more importantly, that alt media doesn't have the answers. I mean, we've called these individuals gatekeepers for the longest time. Now, the parallel media concept, we cracked the monolith. We know how it works. It's a paradigm shift. Trutherism, orthodoxies are the final obstacle here, which is why I've been making it a point that we have to confront these things, even if it means being a little well, it's not argumentative, but we have to stand on principle. All right, let's see here. MaxiD says, "Do you understand just how scripted reality is now? Numbers game. 33 runs the show." Yes, this Taylor Swift psyop is one of the most overt examples of symbolism in plain sight, where they're even drawing our attention to it. So just to kind of recap here, Taylor Swift lost at sea. Where will there be a tragedy psyop this weekend? We're just looking at the connections between Leave the World Behind, The Day the Music Died, all the female icons with tragic deaths associated with Taylor Swift, and the ominous reports and stories all hinting at some tragedy just in time for the Super Bowl, all connected to Taylor Swift. And this is one of these examples of what I would consider to be psyop deconstruction, but we're kind of like pre-auto hoaxing it. In other words, I'm not saying they're going to kill her. I'm saying that they're going to stage something. There's a huge difference. But the red pillars will say George Soros did it to frame us or something. The left will say it was climate change that did it. No one's going to disagree on the essential story except for us. We also talked about Brock Purdy. BP 216 compared to Lee Harvey Oswald. The number 216 connects to Obama's birthday and The Weeknd's birthday. And again, The Weeknd did the head wound Super Bowl performance as a kind of a bizarre foreshadowing. Then the Oswald Down the Rabbit Hole has just been announced. Monster Rabbit, Alice in Wonderland reference, clearly connected to the Donnie Darko rabbit with the head wound. Anyway, this Brock Purdy thing is a new development. Seems very forced. Love Angel C says, "Is John LeBon mocking sports is fake in that link?" I think so. But this is why I say there needs to be a conversation between those who say it's all fake and those who say some's fake, to those who recognize that the scripting and the soap opera is fake, but the athletics is real. There's got to be some discussion to see just where the fake begins and the real ends. Jake the A-hole says, "Chiefs play terrible because she never shows up. 49ers win in a blowout. Sounds like a great script to me. Let's roll." I still like the idea of Vegas getting the nuke, and I'm sorry for anybody who's there. And I don't think it's real, but I think it's stageable, especially if it's a high-altitude EMP blast. And remember, Taylor said on her new album in the notes, it says something about Love Bomb and Pitch Black. And Love Bomb makes me think of a couple of things, but it says tick tick, making a reference to like a watch. And she's wearing the doomsday clock around her neck. So look, we're not psychics here, but nor are we not grasping at straws. I'm saying that we are reading a script. The Department of Defense put this out. Pentagon to the MAGA world. "You need to calm down over Taylor Swift. We know too well the dangers of conspiracy theories, so to set the record straight, Swift is not part of a DoD psychological operation, period." That's Sabrina Singh, Pentagon spokesperson. So the Pentagon is getting ahead of this thing, and the idea that she's in danger. Why? And look, I want to point this out too. I didn't know who Taylor Swift was. I mean, I knew she existed. Didn't care. I know she was a MAGA goddess for some time. I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. I didn't start paying attention to her until I noticed the conspicuous 13s being coded into this whole thing. And it took me 5 minutes of digging to recognize, okay, they are moving on with something here. There's something going on. Some kind of psyop that's connected to the Blackout Bowl. It's building up a story meant to, I think, mass harvest of loosh. I mean, what are they going to be doing exactly? We have a few ideas, but this latest thing with the her winning the #1 song, longest song, beating that The Day the Music Died, the song being about a plane crash. Look, it's all there. So we'll see where it goes, but I didn't know who she was, is my point. All this stuff was thrown at us, projected onto the movie screen of the collective psyche. We've been given the parts. We've been told, hey, look who's on the stage, Lee Harvey Oswald. You see how they do this? Leave the world behind. Put all kinds of things. Plane crashes. How many stories have we seen of plane crashes and snipers in just the last month? And these are things they do on purpose. Remember last year you had a guy rings a doorbell and an old man shoots him. A girl chases a basketball to her neighbor's driveway, gets shot, or her dad gets shot. Some cheerleader goes in the wrong car, gets shot. Someone parks in the wrong driveway, gets shot. All these stories about people getting shot, it's the Wild West, then it faded. Then it was train derailment after train derailment. We have these things they draw our attention to. The suddenly died thing. Whatever happened to that? So my point of it is, we're just looking at the zeitgeist. We're looking at the big picture. And Taylor Swift shows up on the big picture, and I'm merely reading the script. So this has been the Swift Superbowl Psyop Decode for 2/7/2024. And this latest thing with Lee Harvey Oswald just adds to the intrigue. Anyway, thanks for joining. We will begin earlier. And I'm going to try to set up Discord so we can get more callers in. I realize not everybody uses Skype. So I'll sit here and I'll plug that in. Anyway, thanks for joining. Appreciate all the comments. And go to ips.monster to get on the newsletter. This is One-Eyed Jack and the Shells. Pope Elon.
I mean, we're all going to die someday. And if you're going to pick some place to die, then why not Mars? Okay. You know, if we're born on Earth, why not die on Mars? Seems like maybe it'd be kind of exciting. But so I think given the choice of dying on Earth or dying on Mars, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll die on Mars.